Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. We are at 950 Northwest Baker Creek Road here in McMinnville, located on the back side of the house. I describe everything as if you are in the street facing the front of the home. So right now, again, from that orientation, we're about, a fifth of the way across the back of the house. Easy clean out to find if you work your way from from right to left. 4-inch ABS. Dropping in here, checking the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Water is running. Off we go. Transitioning to concrete pipe. All right, looks like we're bumping out here. At least it appears to be a larger diameter. I'm a little bit... This joint right up ahead here looks a little bit suspect. It may just be the way the water's running into it. We'll see once we drain the line out here at the end. That joint there almost looked like it may be letting groundwater seep into the line. And I've got just a horrible sun glare on my screen. And it looks like the main right there. And I did notice there's a manhole in the backyard, so I expected to see the line terminate at the rear fence line. It looks like we're hitting the main right here. So we'll drain the line out. We're going to go locate really quick here while the pipe drains off, and then we'll get a better view of things as we come back in. Even shading my screen with an umbrella right now, it's so sunny back here. I may have to review some of this at home. We'll see here once the line drains out how good of a view we get. Alrighty, so locate the camera head. So you notice here how we still have water pouring through the sewer line. This is what I was a little bit suspect of. Those joints look like they were blown. So I've had the garden hose off now. We have no interior water running. It's a vacant house. So what that is groundwater that's penetrating through the pipe joint or joints, and quite a lot of it. And you can also notice it's very apparent, especially when you start locating where the line terminates, where that pipe is, because the ground is very obviously sunken right there. So anyway, from a flow standpoint, right now this isn't doing a whole lot to affect functionality, but this is the kind of stuff that can cause a sinkhole. When your pipes are open like this and they're sucking this much groundwater through, it can also be sucking dirt through the joints and doing hydro erosion. So not every line like this will result in a sinkhole. In fact, most of them don't. But it can indeed happen. And when you get the ground sinking like that, that obviously it is concerning. And generally speaking, that is due to hydro erosion. The sewer line is eroding the dirt out from around the pipe. So this is a spot here where I'm certainly going to recommend a fix on the sewer line. I've marked, for whatever reason, my paint supplier sent me red paint instead of green. So I apologize. I'm using red paint. It's kind of a brick red color. You'll see the manhole, the back or the fence line. We're sitting just 5 to 10 feet to the right of that. I've marked at the connection to the main with a red T marking. I'm getting around 7 foot 5 inches deep there. Alrighty, so I've marked that, and I'm getting about 6 foot deep at the start, about 7.5 feet deep there at the end of the line. The line you can see here is diving quite effectively. It dives off hard there at the very end. So, and you can do this a couple different ways. My 2 cents, I've been doing this 13 years now. I've counted almost 25,000 sewer lines, been a part of a lot of repairs and drain cleaning and whatnot. And Anyway, generally speaking, when it comes to old sewer lines like this, where I would ideally like to see that repair taken to is up to the top of the drop. The concern is, especially when you start going and tearing up ground like that that's been in place for a long time, is that especially an older line like this, these joints are generally grouted. I really, spot repair is what I'm getting at, is not my favorite setup on older sewer lines like this. Especially when you're digging to depths like that. It's very easy to jar the soil around the line you're trying to leave in place. It can disrupt the pipe joints. It can separate them quite easily, just like you have there at the end of the sewer line. And I've seen a lot of these over the years where they get spot repaired. The house sells again a few years later, and boom, the joints immediately around the area that was spot repaired now are open to the ground. So, you know, the stuff that I can certainly recommend a repair on here is from around 42 to 45 feet. The rest of this concrete is aged quite nicely. It's very, very clean. All right, so I'm going to put a different marking right here. Right now, I have the main connection marked with a T, and then an X marking about 3 feet away. That section between the X and the T that's at the fence line is the area that's of most concern, where the groundwater is seeping through. I'm going to take the markings back here to about 36 feet, which I realize makes it look a lot longer. In reality, because of the way the line is diving, it's not running out as significantly as it appears. The line is just about running straight down here. So I'm going to mark this spot with a T. This is where I would suggest taking the repair back to, just to be on the safer side. But that last 3 feet or so there is the area that's truly problematic as it sits right now. That's the spot that definitely needs fixing. Alrighty, and this is also, you know, when you sit here and stare at it with your eyes, this is about where the depression starts. It's the most obvious towards the end of the line there, but you can very visibly, especially if you know where the line's running, it's very easy to eyeball where the ground is sunken there. And it follows perfectly with the sewer line. So, you know, at the least there, I would suggest taking that back to that first marking, one that comes into the yard a little ways, just to be on the safe side. It shouldn't be really changing the price point of this much. This is all under grass and dirt. You're between about 5 feet deep at the very beginning if you take it as far back as I was suggesting. So realistically, what I would really do, I would check at the price difference between a spot repair there and what it would cost to just simply update all the concrete pipe at this point in time. In my opinion, after just being a part of a lot of repairs over the years, ideally, you just do these things at one time and not in parts and pieces. It's much more expensive to do it that way. Not that the rest of the concrete is in horrible condition, but it's kind of a missed opportunity when you're already digging up that section of pipe and it's all under grass and dirt like this. You don't have driveways to deal with. This is the proper time to just deal with it all at once. So that's really what I would suggest looking into, is check on the, get a bid and a price difference between those two things. Guys that do a lot of digging type repairs, and this is one that if you could get that water to stop running there, you could potentially do an epoxy liner on it. The slope and grade here is actually quite good still. So it's one that you could line. I'm worried that you may not be able to cure the liner if you can't get that water to stop running through there. So that's one way you could do it trenchlessly, but that fellows that do a lot of digging and are good and quick at it, there should not be a gargantuan price difference between those two things. So that would be the ideal way to do this, is just do it right, get it all updated at one time. But obviously it's about that last 10 feet or so of the line there that's the most concerning. And where I took that marking back to is right where the depression, the most obvious sunken part of the yard, starts. So I think it's a good idea to not just do that last 3 feet, but do about that last, it's from about 35 feet to about 45 feet is the section of pipe that really should get dealt with here. Make sure a rescope is performed after any repairs are done to check the work. And if only that section of pipe is done, I would highly recommend rescoping the line about a year later, just to ensure and take a look at the line and see how it's held up after a spot repair like that. Most repair guys that have been around a while are going to tell you, you know, anytime you'd go digging around old pipe like this, especially these concrete lines that are grouted joints, they're not flexible rubber fern coat joints. When you start monkeying around with the ground like this, it can jar the soil adjacent to it. It's just, you want to check to make sure that nothing like that occurred. And about a year later, you should be seeing signs of that, if any of that does actually happen or not. Aside from that, all the concrete pipe here has good flow. The end section there is concerning, obviously, but as it sits, stuff is conveying through there just fine. Obviously, you're letting on a lot of groundwater. So anyway, not the kind of issue in the immediate that's going to lead to a blockage, but it can cause progressive settling, which has already taken place, and it can obviously cause some severe settling and hydro erosion to the actual yard, and can potentially be a safety concern if that does if it caverns the ground out underneath there. So anyway, when you do your rescope, make sure you do that when the ground is closed. You don't want to do an open trench sewer scope, because at that point everything you're looking at is in theory. You're not going to be able to see if any settling issues occur due to bad compaction until you put weight on top of the sewer line. And then I would rescope this line periodically just to keep an eye on things, especially about 5 feet out here where the line swaps from ABS to concrete. That transition joint is the weakest joint in your line as it relates to root intrusions. And you've got two pretty hefty rose bushes in the vicinity of that. It would be worth taking a look at that every now and then just to make sure that any roots haven't weaseled through that joint. Not that it will happen, but it can indeed happen. So anyway, aside from that, about that last 10 feet there, everything else here for the concrete and the age it is in quite fair condition. It's clean and has good flow and functioning at this time. Overall, line is not functioning properly as it relates to being a watertight sewer line.